Hey, this is your Diamond Mentor moment. This is Janine, and I am so honored to be with you on this wonderful 2025 beginning of the new year. 2025 year 25 is a wonderful number, and I just am so excited to just really come at you with some new information, new research, some things that you might want to remind yourself to be doing this year, and understand that you are creative and what are some things that you can actually implement. So today we are talking about making associations, making connections, and why that is so critical in creative thinking. I talk about intercultural creativity, neurosomatic creativity, and prismatic leadership. And then we're launching a new institute this year, and I'll talk more about that at the end. First of all, you know that the World Economic Forum listed creative thinking among the top needed skills. And I have this wonderful book. You know me, I love my books. This one is Tomorrow Mine by Dr. Gabriella Rosen Kellerman and Dr. Martin Seligman. And Dr. Martin Seligman is the founder of positive psychology. So he's been doing some really amazing things. And they were just really talking about how with automation, with AI, with all of those things going on, how the ability to think creatively, to really have that intuition and to have that ability to be observant and sensitive to your surroundings and make connections, which we're going to talk about today, is really, really important. And so they just go over in the book that creativity is an essential work capability for two reasons. One, given the growing automation of work, which we just talked about, they're looking at estimating an overall 13% increase in the workforce, hours devoted to creative thinking, with an additional 16% increase in hours spent on other types of innovative thinking, right? And so they even gave the example of a journalist. Now a lot of the articles can be brought up with AI. So what do journalists really have to do? Which that's more of not a blue collar job, but more of a white collar job. And they're looking at like investigative journalism, making subtle observations, hypothesizing connections between wildly disparate events. We're going to talk about that today, and also basing a lot of your observations on nuanced social clues, going back to being sensitive to self-awareness, other awareness, and situational awareness and environmental awareness. So how do we increase that skill, and how do we use our brain to do so? So we are first looking at a concept, which I will bring up my slides. We are looking at a concept that, number one, creativity is not only artistry. I keep saying that because that's a myth we have to let go. Artistry is, of course, connected to creativity, but a lot of people think they're not creative because they're not excellent in the arts. So we have to understand that creativity is broader than just the arts. But as you know, that my research goes into, the arts are a critical component for creative thinking in non-arts areas, right? And definitely with what we're going to talk about today, your ability to make associations across different types of disciplines and fields. And so these are just a few things that creative thinking sits on. If you look at the frame, divergent thinking, your ability to think divergently, reframing, combinatory thinking, associations, and metaphorical thinking. What does that look like, right? In the brain, in your day-to-day practice, in you being aware of how that shows up in your personal and professional lives as well. So I have an example. Here is your cell phone. Your iPhone, your Android, or whatever you have, your iPhone or Android is the product of associative thinking, of combinatory thinking, right? Combining things. And Dr. Seligman and Dr. Kellerman, they talk about it in this book as well. The inventor's ability to look at the different elements that the iPhone has, such as your phone, your camera, right? Your media player, and see the similarities in objects that on the outside look pretty different, and they have different functions, right? They have different purposes, but how they function is huge. So they saw that these items bring in data a certain way, store data a certain way, and retrieve data a certain way. And so that was a similar process. So that means it can be brought together in one item. And so really being aware of how things function. I have a small activity for those of you who can see the board. This is an activity I do in a lot of my trainings where I have them choose an image and usually attach it to themselves. But you can choose an image or two images and really do some cognitive, flexibility play. How are those images similar? Let's say that, the easier ones are like the candle and the sun. The similarities are pretty much low-hanging fruit, right? They both emit light, right? They both emit heat, things like that. But what if you pick the candle and the diamond, or the thumbs up and the microphone? So these items are a little bit further apart with their obvious similarities. And so the mind practice games, the exercises that you can do is go through your home and pick out objects that normally would not be associated and look for similarities. That's really, really important, because if you do it in play, your brain will do it when the stakes are higher, when you're in a board meeting, when you're in an ideation session and you have to think of new ideas. Your ability to associate things that are not normally associative is very important. Another aspect I want to go over for your Diamond Mentor moment on how to think creatively is be aware of form versus function, or form and function. So the form of an object, or the surface qualities, such as the microphone, it's made out of metal. It has holes. It emits sound, right? The form of the cactus, right? It's a plant. It has spikes. It's green. Things that you can describe with your senses. What does it look like? Feel like? But the function has you go deeper, right? So how? It's not the what, it's the how. How does it get to its purpose, right? And other things that you can think about is, what is its purpose? When you look at the function of the object, it helps you go beyond the surface qualities, and you can make even more connections, right? This Diamond Mentor moment is about making connections. So think about the form and the function. The form of the sun is, it's hot, it's made out of gases, it's, millions of miles away. But the function of the sun is it initiates life, right? It can be a way of course, emitting heat, but you can go even deeper of a way of just almost, giving you a warm hug, right? You can think about it from a metaphorical position, and highly creative people are great metaphorical thinkers. So going past to just how it looks like on the outside and going to the inner function of it. And what does that look like when you're doing that, when you're ideating, when you're throwing around ideas, of being able to use your imagination to do both. All right. And so we talked about comparing two things that are not normally compared, that may not have obvious similarities. We talked about just how you're surrounded by inventions that are the product of combinatory and associative thinking. All right, your next tip for thinking more creatively in 2025 is increasing your diverse experiences and your diverse network. As you know, I founded Intercultural Creativity, which is a product of associative thinking, right? Intercultural competence and creative thinking. And we always talk about the importance of your brain, your beautiful brain, as the book that we wrote says. Your beautiful brain is a result, right? Is the result of its experiences, of the people that it interacts with, right? And how it interprets the world. And so if you're only doing things that you've always done, you're in a routine, you go to the same places over and over again, your brain's only getting certain amount of information in order to do that combination and recombination. If you are embarking upon new ideas or new experiences, new journeys, new adventures, even better because now your brain has more data to pull from in order to make those connections. Same with your networks. If you are around the same people all the time, day in, day out, especially if they have a lot of the same demographics as that's great. But how often do you go outside of that? How often do you meet new people? And how often do you meet new people who may not have the same lived experience than you? They're a different culture from a different place. They may speak a different language or multiple languages. They may have different hobbies than you. They may just have different traditions than you. That is one of the best ways to increase your data set in order to have interesting new ideas. And so that is another tip for 2025. Really put it as a line item on things to do every month. Meet someone, do a meet up, or every month, go to a place you've never been before. I always ask a question: when's the last time you did something for the first time? So keeping that in mind. Another thing that I do to increase my skill and because I don't tell you to do stuff that I'm not doing by myself, is I do a daily creativity devotional. I have two to share with you. So creativity sits on your ability to combine ideas in new ways. In order for it to do that well, it needs new ideas on a regular basis. And so this I found, well, my goodness, I had it when my son was an infant. So I've had it for over 6 years. It's called the Intellectual Devotional. Revive your mind, complete your education, and roam confidently with the culture class. And so what it does is it goes over different areas of thought, and you just read one page a day, and it goes over literature, history, music, religion, philosophy, science, visual arts. All the arts get covered. And it just gives you one little tidbit of information a day. So one day I'm learning about, Beethoven's Fifth, and the next day I'm learning about Aristotle's philosophy on form versus something else. And the next day I'm learning about how light works. Seriously, this is amazing. I want to make one myself. Another thing that I do with my son is he has 3 books. This is Pastor Louis, and this is a faith-based book, but it's called The Wonder of Creation. And the cool thing about this book is it takes a science fact about, either physical science, earth science, marine science, and it combines it with a devotional topic. But the one thing I love about this is I'm learning right along with Sean. Today I learned about the platypus, how it is, let's see, it's like a mutant superhero, they call it. So what do you get if you combine a duck, an otter, and a beaver together? You get the platypus, and it's a bizarre creature, and it's a mammal that actually lays eggs. And so I'm learning all of these new facts while Sean and I are doing our devotional. So this is helping me with my creative thinking, because creativity sits on your ability to combine and recombine information you already know. And so if you're not adding information to your data set, then it's going to tap out. And so for those of us who aren't in a formalized school or anything, these are great ways to add short little tidbits of information. And so of course, I love to hear from our researchers in the field. I bring to you neuroscientists and different thought leaders. So here is Dr. George Lakoff talking about how our brain binds information. And so for us to, just really make sure our brain doesn't get, calcified in one way of thinking about one thing, how do we bring in new information? So here's Dr. George.
Okay. The name for this phenomenon is neural binding. And what it does is this: if there are circuits for taking ideas that you already have, pigs and birds, and binding the relevant parts together. The wings of the birds, the shape of the pig, and so on. And you can't move things in your brain. All you can do is have connections between them. And the question is, how do you get those connections? And that's what we're figuring out. And it's a fairly straightforward way, given what we know about neural learning. I'm not going to give you a lecture on neural learning. But It's crucial. Your brain can do this like that. You can imagine new things. And the question is, how do you get trained to imagine new things? It's a natural thing that your brain can do. And that is by reading poetry, learning to understand it, through drama, through the arts, through folk tales, through all of those things.
All right, so that was Dr. George Lakoff talking about the importance of what your brain does, neural binding, right? And how you can really increase that data set. Of course, he brought up poetry, the arts, and those of you who know my work, I'm a huge advocate for people increasing the arts, and you'll see our project that we are coming out for 2025 with that aspect in mind. And so as you start this year, right? Especially as we see a continual move, an exponential move with AI and automation, and sadly, jobs just changing, and people needing to move into new areas and needing to upskill and reskill. Do not forget the exercises you do at home will make a difference when you get into the workforce. You thinking more creatively, you making more associations, you being sensitive and observant about nuances, you doing parallel thinking and seeing how things are connected that way. And so if you practice in your environment, right, at your home, in the park, taking walks, it'll show up when you need it the most. Because when you even think about the work that I'm doing, intercultural creativity is the product of associations. People are talking about cultural competence. There's people talking about creative thinking, but I brought the two together, right? Associations and combinatory work to create intercultural creativity. No one used it. I trademarked it. Same thing for neurosomatic creativity. There's people out there talking about neurosomatic intelligence and, of course, creativity. But I'm like, wait, but neurosomatic intelligence informs creative thinking. It affects and influences your ability to think creatively. So why don't we bring them together? And trademarked it. No one had it. So I'm like, hey, I'll take it. And so we are in the age of creative thinking. We are in the age of this higher order thinking. If you get the book Tomorrow Mind, they will talk about it very well. And so as we wrap up with your Diamond Mentor moment, you can continue to do little thought exercises like this. Albert Einstein called them thought experiments. Don't forget the book that we have is I Am Creative. If you're looking for the 16 diamond tools of highly creative thinkers, and it's based off of this book called, which I love to read. It's called Sparks of Genius, the 13 thinking tools of the world's most creative people. I believe there are 16 thinking tools, so I added more, and plus I love the number 16. And so you can get I Am Creative. We are actually republishing this book with more information in the back for adults. And so I'm so excited to be launching that this year as well. And the power of I Am, the power of you using your words and how your words affect your brain. We always talk to the parents in the back. I'll be keynote speaking in Arizona for the Arizona Gifted and Talented Association. So excited to talk about curiosity and creativity along with my fellow keynoter, George Kuros. And I'll also be talking with the California State University system about intercultural creativity and how culture affects our creative thinking. And so have a wonderful, wonderful start to your new year. Be intentional about your creative training, your creative thinking, and stay tuned as we launch our new initiative for 2025 and beyond, really looking at how music can improve the creative thinking of people in non-arts areas. And so we will see you next time for your Diamond Mentor moment. Have fun and